Hi there, I'm Stan Baker, one of the hosts of Circle Forum, along with Shelley Steele and Steve Young. In this episode, we speak again with Dr. Shannon Behan, who is the president of the British Columbia Principal Vice Principal Association, also known as the BCPVPA. She talks about the mental health challenges for principals, the increasing stress, the burnout, the isolation faced by principals due to the demanding workloads and a lack of systemic mental health support for principals.
This episode is brought to you by Work-Life Balance. Did you know that principals with better work-life balance tend to make more thoughtful and effective decisions? Chronic stress from poor work-life balance impairs cognitive function, leading to reactive or short-term thinking, which can negatively affect school operations and long-term planning. Research shows that teachers are more likely to adopt balanced practices when their school principals demonstrate them, creating a healthier school culture.
Check out our website, www.restorative.ca, for some practical hints that use restorative leadership to talk about the how-to of maintaining a work-life balance in school. Let's join your hosts, Shelley, Steve, and me, Stan. One of the things that you have mentioned noticing in your conversations around the province, Shannon, has been an increasing concern with the mental health of principals. Can you tell us a little bit about what you're observing?
Yeah, it's a very topical issue. And as I go around the province, administrators are really appreciative that we recognize it. We see that this is a problem, and we're trying to figure out ways to support our leaders in struggles. First of all, we have in the province of BC, and I don't know in other provinces if the statistics are the same, but we have a large number of principals and vice principals that are within their first 5 years of being in this role. So they move from being a teacher to being a building leader or a district principal. And it's a completely different role. It's complex in a different way than being a classroom teacher. Then what we are finding is that what our new leaders or what the new teachers have seen historically about how the senior principals and vice principals operate is not resonating with them. And so what I mean by this is they see us working 55, 60, 65 hours a week just to make sure everything is going well. And they are saying, I just need some work-life balance. It's really difficult then, if you're a new administrator, to think, I want some work-life balance, because in running a school, there is a bottom line. And if you don't have somebody to run your program or teach grade 4 or dole out the breakfast or supervise the school dance, it's you. And so your opportunity to have balance or go to fitness class or connect with a friend or have a nice walk, all of that's what goes out the window first. So the complexities of the job means that the first thing that goes for leaders is the kind of health and well-being piece. And it is interesting for me to watch. And I did see it more in teachers, the young teachers coming in, that I would post a job and say it was 5 days a week, and they would come in and interview and they'd say, I only want to work 4 days a week. And I would say, but the job's 5 days a week. So and school is from September to June on the whole. And I don't want to be mean-spirited about it. It's just something that I noticed, that the work ethic looks different. So that's one piece. But with the endless initiatives that are coming into schools, it again goes back to our first conversation, is that it's on the backs of your building leaders that makes that run, or your district principals that are making these things happen. They're just, you're working Monday to Friday. You have to make sure you put at least one day in on the weekend, and make sure that your phone is, you can turn it off for an hour or two in the evening, but make sure you maybe check it before you go to bed. And other people are better at it than I am, but historically I haven't seen how to run your building without that kind of demand on your time.
What's happening to the principals, and what type of mental health concerns are you hearing about?
I think that they're exceptionally stressed. I think they're overwhelmed. And I think that there's a lot of burnout that's that I see happening in real life. And but they're a bit stuck in a cycle because it's tricky. If you ask for help, then you are seen as being less capable. And it goes back to how we see ourselves as these type A people that make it all work. And then, so they're just sometimes I think suffering in silence, but it it will catch up with you.
For most, the option isn't there to say, I don't want to do this anymore. I want to go back to the classroom. They can't say, this isn't what I thought it would be. I want to go back to doing what I love. So they're there now and they have families to support and careers to further. So there isn't the option other than this for most.
I'm wondering if there's people are looking at the training that teachers get to become administrators. What are the courses they're taking? Should we be looking at that training and looking at some different optional types of things that they should be doing before moving into that role to better prepare them for this stress that they are going to be under? Because when I did it, I took my PQP 1 and 2 as 3 weeks each summer for 2 summers in a row and apply for the job, and I'm in. I don't know if that's enough preparation or almost forewarning for young teachers to say, this is what the role is now, and here's how we're going to prepare you better for it.
That is such a great question, because there are a few things I think that need to come into play for our leaders that are overwhelmed and stressed out and feeling about burnout. And one is your peer support, and I'll get to that in a minute, but the great question about how we're preparing them, I always used to think it's so important that we have really good professional development for our teachers, because our teachers go into university and universities have them for 4 or 5 years, and then they are in the public education system for about 25. In those 25 years, we better make sure we have really good professional development for ongoing development for teachers, and that needs to be the same for our administrators. In the province of BC, I think one of the things that we have done focused specifically on what you're talking about is last year, the BCPVPA had a partnership with the Ministry of Education and Childcare, and we created a consortium of 10 modules for aspiring school leaders. It was a pilot program. We had 30 administrators who were in their first or second year of being building principal, vice principal. This also included colleagues from the Yukon because they've adopted the BC curriculum. And these 10 modules, they were quite intense, but they prepared the administrators for the real foundation pieces of running a school, from teaching how to build Indigenous relationships with your Indigenous nations colleagues in your community, budgeting. I look back, and when I became a principal, I sat down at my desk, and then I remember my office assistant said, we better take a look at the budget. And I thought, what do you mean the budget? Like, I didn't even know the password. I didn't even know the My Budget file, because nobody trained me for any of that. You just sat down, and then you better pretend you know what you're doing and figure it out on your own if you don't. But finance is one of the modules. Governance is one of the modules. And this is a program. So at the end of it, we sent the results to UBC, and they're going to refine it and possibly restructure it. But this would be hugely helpful for new administrators having some foundation education and knowledge about the intricacies of running a school. And then also in that, those 30 leaders that were in the original pilot program, they're really connected to one another. They're from all over the province and from the Yukon. So naturally, they have that connection with one another. I think that's the direction that we need to go in. And it would be great if districts, because there'll be a financial piece to it, if districts were able to financially support that leadership development. I have to say, in Kamloops, they have an excellent leadership development program. Teachers who are aspiring to be school leaders, they have a leadership development program that's 2 years, and they are classroom teachers, but they are released 0.2 throughout the year, and they basically serve as vice principals in different schools under the tutelage of a currently serving principal with on-the-job real experience. And after that 2 years, they can decide that maybe they want to apply for postings. They can also decide they really love teaching, but they have 2 years of that kind of really supportive education. And the results in Kamloops are, I think, excellent. And their leadership development program is one of the many reasons why it works so well there.
Aspiring principals and vice principals, in terms of what they're going to be facing and how could that be included in that type of a leadership program? Because I think part of it is simply awareness. Getting in, I had no idea that this was, I think one of the biggest shocks for me going into the principalship was I was very good at dealing with the kids, but I had no idea it was going to be spending so much time. Like the adult piece was just, it just blew me away, right?
I think with what I saw, because I was part of the consortium myself, and I think we are being very honest with the with the leaders who participate in that. Without something like that, when I applied to be a vice principal, I had no idea what I was getting into, because everybody makes it look so easy. You don't see a principal sitting by themselves at 10 o'clock at night and
Right.
or the parent who is yelling at them or swearing at you. Don't see that stuff happen. And that's a part of what leaders need to be aware of. The fiduciary responsibility piece. So I was a part of the governance module specifically. And a lot of what I see with some of the building leaders is the fiduciary responsibility to the board. That is something that really needs to be clear and concise and well understood. And I'm not sure that's the kind of stuff that will get somebody into a difficult situation. And if you think having an investigation isn't stressful, like those are the pieces. Stephen, it goes back to what's the education that our aspiring leaders need, and how can we offer that? So the province has responded in that way. And through BCPVPA, we have a lot of program offerings for aspiring leaders, for leaders who are currently in their first 3 years, for leaders who are 10 years or fewer before retiring. So we have a lot of program offerings that we have to support leaders in whatever area they are.
I still have a lot of colleagues and friends who are still working, and even though I'm retired, and just had a phone call with one last week, and he's thinking of retiring now. Probably should have years ago, just because he can, but he still loves the job, and he's older than me. He still loves the job, and he still thinks he might go another year. And I said, "What is it?" Because it's all those things, all the stress and the staffing. He says, "I just like working with the kids." And so we've often said this. Stan and Shelley and I and other guests have said it. When you're having a really stressful time of the day, what do you do? And sometimes I'm just gonna go down to the kindergarten class and hang around with those guys. I go to the gym and play dodgeball. And when we think of mental health, each principal, each administrator has to figure out on their own what is their happy place and what's going to help them. And they may need some help pinpointing that from other people. Say, "I've never seen you happier than when you're down in the kindergarten class. Maybe you should do that more often." So we can help each other to find our happy place. And I think we need to do more from that top level down, but also you can't ever underestimate the value of having colleagues and having a good relationship with your colleagues to help you with your mental health.
With regards to mental health, I'm of the name it and tame it mantra. So first of all, recognize it. This is a hard job, and it is okay. You will suffer. It's not easy. There's complexities to the job and relationships, and people come in upset and angry, and you are the landing place as the pillar of your community. So if you're struggling, recognize it's okay. All of your peers and your colleagues have been struggling at one time or another. So also reach out. I have 3 good friends, and we have had a texting stream for years. And during COVID, they were a lifeline. So reach out. You have to find your people, and formally or informally. And don't hesitate. If you feel like it is all too much and too overwhelming, you have one short and beautiful life, reach out to your senior leadership team. They want to help you. They want you to do well, because if you're doing well, your teachers are doing well, the support staff are doing well, the parents are doing well. And the most important thing is those little kids and those big kids are doing well. So reach out to your senior leadership team. They want you to be okay.
I also think about, it's not if you're struggling, it's when you're struggling, because you will struggle. So putting that right out front to start with, that you will struggle at some point, and it may look different for different people, but to take care of your mental health and your well-being, that you don't need a diagnosis to do that, that it's your well-being as well. And we've also talked a lot about supports, and I wonder if it was an automatic that it's integrated into whatever program, what prep, what helps an administrator move into that role, that is integrated. It's a given. It's not for when you ask for it, so that it's built in there up front, and then that will start to establish your people and your supports after you move out. We're giving you these supports. We're going to have these discussions as you move into this role.
Thank you again very much, and have a very good day.
Yeah.
Lovely to see you, and thank you.
Bye.
See you
so
soon.
much.
Okay, all right,
Okay,
great
bye-bye.
talking to you. As Dr. Behan discusses, building these resilient principal support systems doesn't happen by accident. It happens by design and by intention. And there's a need for integrated and ongoing professional development and mental health resources to better prepare and sustain school leaders, particularly for new principals and for aspiring school leaders. These are difficult conversations to have, and you can find out more about our work with Restorative Leadership that really does address some of these very practical how-tos for exactly these difficult discussions at www.restorative.ca. To quote a note I received on LinkedIn from Ted Franzen, a retired superintendent from Manitoba, 25 years ago, someone said to him, "The number one mental health worker and leader in a community is the elementary school principal." And it hasn't gotten any easier since then. So, who else is looking out for your mental health, Ms. or Mr. Principal?